Welcome to this week's podcast. I'm Michelle Pascoe, and thank you so much for joining me. Each week, I either interview an amazing guest, or perhaps I'm sharing my own insights over the past 3 decades in this amazing industry, as well as being in business. This podcast is for those in the hospitality industry, but it's also so much more than that. It's for someone just like you. Perhaps you're an individual building a business, or you're just starting out building a team, or you have many people that you lead and manage. If that is so, and you are wanting to create an amazing experience for your patrons, your clients, your members, then this is the podcast for you. Welcome, everyone, to today's podcast. I have got the most amazing lady talking about a subject that you've probably not even thought of, but it is so important because it's such an important part of our daily lives in business and in the workplace, dealing with those customers, clients, guests, whatever you would like to call them. So we're going to be having a conversation about narcissism. So bootstrap in. This is going to be a really interesting episode. Now, I have been trying to work out a time to interview this lady for, I would say, 6+ years, and our calendars have finally come together. And I'm talking about Mariya Radysh. Now, she's going to tell you in a moment about the difference between the Ukrainian way that you say, or if I hadn't have asked her, it could be the Australian way as a vegetable, as radish, but we'll have a little chat about that shortly. But Mariya, as I said, is a good friend. She's a well-renowned keynote speaker. She's a TEDx speaker, not once, but twice, and is a thought leader on how to thrive as a human being in the 2020s. Mariya has lived in different parts of the world, including Eastern Europe and the USA, and for the past 17+ years here in Australia has been her home. Along the way, she's completed 5 university degrees and built several careers as a lawyer, a university lecturer, and interpreter and fluent in 5 languages. Sometimes I think, what have we got in common? What does she see in me as a friend? Because I sit there going, wow, I'm battling with English. But Mariya originally comes from a family of medical practitioners, and over the last decade, she herself has been focusing on conducting in-depth research about well-being. Her main goal is to help as many people as possible to transform and create for themselves healthier and happier lives. She has been sharing accurate and up-to-date insights into both physiology and psychology to achieve just that. With Mariya, you are to receive straight answers, and you will walk away empowered and having clarity about what to do next from this episode. And she's also got a book that is about to come out, but we'll talk a little bit about that shortly. So, Mariya, welcome, and thank you for finally finding a space in your diary that we can both connect. It's so lovely to see you.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be with you and with your listeners. Thank you for inviting me.
Perfect. So look, narcissism. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself. What has got you on this journey from where you've come to here? So we've just got a little bit of a backstory about you, and then why focusing on narcissism in particular about in this book.
So a few years ago, I had the worst burnout of my life to the point that I was in constant pain. I couldn't even get out of the bed. No amount of coffee was helping me. And I talk a bit more about this in my second TEDx talk. So I was very close to kicking the bucket. And surprisingly, no one could even diagnose me. So it's still a bit of a mystery what was happening. So I started digging into this because I realized I had to climb out of that pit hole myself. And I started doing more and more research into health, both physical and mental. And what's interesting is that if we go way, way, way back, as a toddler, I felt very ill and I died twice in a hospital in my
Wow.
mom's arms, basically. And my granny came to visit my parents, and she begged them and she convinced them to let them take me with her. And she lived in Ukraine in a very, very beautiful village on a farm. And she herself is an amazing medical practitioner.
Mm.
She's actually one of the heroes, like she's recognized as a hero of labor in the Eastern Europe.
Right.
And she had like lots of different awards and medals. Like her chest was just covered. Her jacket was barely could barely hold all of her awards. Um, and interestingly, well, she was doing a lot of things intuitively with me. And this is where, growing up on a farm, I had access to most beautiful organic vegetables and fruits and
Mm.
fresh grass-fed meats and fresh water and fresh air. And I was doing earthing and I ran around barefoot and I was cycling, like going on a bicycle in the
Mm.
sunlight. I was doing a lot of work in the fields, so another like way to expose myself to sunlight. And what's interesting, I sort of forgot because I was very little when I was ill and when I was recovering. I sort of forgot about those things. And when a few years
Mm.
ago I started doing research on, okay, what is it that makes us healthy and happy and fulfilled in particular?
Mm.
But my first focus was on physical health,
Mm.
how to get myself better, how to feel better, how to recover. I realized through my research that those things that saved my life when I was a kid, these are exactly the same things that helped me to recover.
Right.
Um, and it was quite interesting that I repeated the same journey twice.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and hence I started writing a book about it, how to be, in particular, healthy and happy in the 2020s. And after a lot of research and a lot of thought, I realized that three most important things that we can do for ourselves in order to be healthy and happy is get proper sleep and
Mm.
rest, is to work on our skill of courage or self-confidence. It's the
Mm.
same thing. And the third thing is our relationships.
Mm.
So to have proper connections, to have proper in-depth relationships
Mm.
with other people. So in my opinion, in my humble opinion, after years of research, this is what I concluded, that three most important things are sleep, courage, and our relationships.
Mm.
And yes, when I started writing the chapter on relationships and do research about that, it has taken me so much longer than I was expecting. It turned out to be such a complex, overly complex topic.
Mm.
And one of the questions I kept asking myself, why are we not taught about those things? This
Yes.
is so crucial for our well-being and
Mm.
for our success as well. Who we surround ourselves with, who are the people around us,
Mm.
what type of relationships we have with them. It is
Yep.
absolutely crucial for both our physical health and mental health, and also for our professional growth. It
Mm.
just, unless you're living on a deserted island,
Yes. Yeah.
your relationships play a crucial role in every part of your life.
Definitely.
It's really painful and sad that we're not taught about those things.
It
Uh,
is. And you
yeah.
know what I find is interesting when you've just gone through that little bit of your journey is that first time as a child, it was really the outpouring from your grandmother and that having when I say control is probably not the right word, but she was showing you, wanting you to, giving you the vegetables to eat, allowing you to have this space. Whereas the second time, as an adult, you really had to set your mind set because nobody else was going to help you this time. Nobody else was going to show you. So this was a whole different way of doing things. So do you think it's been harder this time and easier in the sense of you could have easily slipped back into going, this is just too hard. But because you've made sure that you've got these relationships around you, that's probably one of the reasons that you just kept going, putting that one foot in front of the other.
Yes, I'm so grateful to my friends and my
Mm.
acquaintances. I have such an incredible network. They have been very supportive,
Mm.
and believing in me. but also I really wanted to help other people as well. I was in so
Yes.
much pain. I really didn't want anyone to go through this.
Mm,
Um, and I understand that people find themselves even in worse circumstances, but I just really wanted to share what I was learning because one of the things that really surprised me is how much misinformation is
mm,
out there,
yes.
even about very simple topics like what oil to use to cook or
Mm,
how to hydrate yourself properly. Like in particular with hydration, it also turned out to be such a complex topic. And and it pains me to see the same very bad advice. I was nearly swearing, sorry.
you're fine.
So, so because it's always, oh, you have to drink like 2, 3 liters a day.
Yeah.
And this is a very bad advice because if anything, if you don't do it properly, you can actually make it worse for yourself. So if
Mm,
you drink a lot of water, it doesn't necessarily mean that you hydrate yourself. It just might be shooting through you.
yes. Yeah.
And it's one of the issues that I had health-wise, one of the issues that brought me into burnout because I wasn't hydrating properly.
Mm,
So I
yeah.
also had to to look into that. But it's like one of the examples where there's just so much bad advice that keeps getting repeated, in particular on social media by so-called experts and
Mm,
fitness gurus and people who we're supposed to trust.
yes.
A
Yes.
lot of really bad advice, like about cholesterol and heart disease, about cancer. Like I couldn't believe, Elle Macpherson just released her
Yes.
book, her autobiography,
Mm,
and she was sharing, honestly, that she decided not to go with chemotherapy, but to go with more holistic, more natural
mm,
ways to get better. And I couldn't believe how much hate was towards her.
mm,
That like you're not following the common advice, you didn't do chemotherapy. How could you?
mm,
I just couldn't believe how much, criticism she got for that. Instead of saying thank you for sharing your story and
mm,
how sad we are that you had to go through this, instead of showing her support and instead of celebrating that, she got better and that she's
mm,
sharing her experiences and how she got better. Yeah, she's just been very heavily criticized, and it really
mm,
pains me. So one of the things that kept me going and keeps me going is I really love learning. I really love to get to the bottom of things, and I really love sharing proper insights, up-to-date
yes.
proper
Yeah.
insights that are actually helpful.
Mm,
But yes, I've been very lucky in Australia. I've made so many wonderful friends. Of
yes.
course, it has taken time to build friendships, of course. It doesn't happen
It,
like this.
it doesn't happen overnight, but when you're talking about Elle McPherson and others, we've all got differing opinions. And so, and it's accepting others' opinions. So this is perhaps where we go into that narcissism point, is that we all believe what we do is the right way or the only way. But as we know, we learn from others, but it's that actual sharing. So what is it about understanding narcissism? Your book explores narcissism in great detail, especially in that context of personal and professional relationships. How do you define narcissism, and what are some key signs we should be aware of when dealing with individuals who, exhibit those narcissistic behaviors? Mm.
Well, the good news is that narcissists are a small group, relatively
Mhm.
small group, that the majority of people are kind and have empathy and are considerate.
Mm.
And speaking of which, we can like people kind of fall into 4 different categories. So the biggest category is people that are called normal. We should come up with a better word for them, but
Yes.
this is the majority of the population.
Yes.
That people that have both traits that are empathetic and narcissistic.
Mm.
So those traits are in balance. And
Mm.
this is where I think I need to highlight that every single person, at least once in their life, has done something narcissistic.
Yes.
There is no person that has never done anything
Mm.
narcissistic. And once we start talking about a few behaviors, you will realize it.
Yes.
So the important part is to have, at least to have empathy and narcissism kind of balancing each other out in
Mm,
order to have proper relationships, contribute to the society, not to hurt others, and things like that. So, yeah, the good news is that the largest group of the population is people who also have empathy and on top of some narcissistic traits.
mm,
Another group is empaths, so they have more empathic traits rather than narcissistic.
mm,
And another group is narcissistic people. So it's the other way around. They have more narcissistic traits and less empathy. But
mm.
then it comes to that last group of people who are called narcissists. And they're different from narcissistic people because narcissists don't have empathy. They just
Right.
lack it completely. It's all about them.
Mm,
And it's actually a mental disorder. It's called narcissistic personality disorder.
mm-hmm,
There is a huge debate about how many narcissists are in the world.
mm,
And if you try to look it up, usually a number between 1 to 5% comes up, but it's largely inaccurate.
mm.
I would say it's probably every sixth person that you meet
Wow.
on
Gosh.
average. Yeah, but
Mm,
also, it also depends where you are in terms of your location.
mm.
Because in some countries, the environment favors narcissism,
Right.
and in other parts, it's not as favored. So there's less narcissists, or even if there are narcissists, they usually behave in a better way.
Right.
Um, so, for instance, if we talk about hospitality in Dubai or in
Mm.
Hollywood, oh my God, you can find so many horror stories, in particular about what's going on yachts and in hotels in Dubai.
Yes. Mm.
Most horrifying stories, in particular, what employees have to deal with afterwards, after those clients or with those clients.
Mm.
So yeah, if you're in Dubai, you're gonna meet more narcissists, and if you're in Australia, you're gonna meet less narcissists. And if
Right.
you're in a Scandinavian country, you're probably gonna meet the least amount of narcissists.
Mm. Gosh. Okay. So
Uh,
do you
but
are you able to share us some examples? Because, we don't want to give away the total insights of the book, but just, perhaps just one or two stories there about, well, what does that narcissist, when you're talking about that hospitality, look like in Dubai, compared to Hollywood or here to Australia? How would you see that?
culture is very different,
Mm,
um, and it it dictates behavior of both clients and customers and
mm,
those who provide a service. Like when I moved to Australia in 2007, I was surprised by quite a lot of things, in particular that coffee shops were closing by 4 p.m. For me, it was such a shock. I came from a city where nearly everything was open 24/7. If I wanted to buy a box of strawberries at 2 a.m., I could just cross the road and go to supermarket and buy them. Or
mm.
if I wanted to have a cup of coffee with crepes, there were coffee shops that were open 24/7. You could get crepes and coffee and cakes and food at 2 a.m. No
I
problem at
think you were
all.
lucky to find any coffee shop open at 4 p.m. back then. There's a lot in my local area, they're not even open at 4 p.m. now.
It has gotten better in Melbourne,
Little bit,
but I also
yes.
learned that it had to do with
Yes.
not just, it had to do in particular with licensing as well, because you need to
Yes.
get different licenses for different types of service. And like
Mm.
you might have breakfast license, but not have dinner license. And so it's not that like clear cut, um, like straightforward, because my initial thought was maybe people are lazy.
No, it's just they just want to have time. They want to go surfing or they want to, they've got to go back to their farm or whatever it might be. Or yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Because I also like I grew up and I lived for a long time in the environment where everything was about grinding.
Mm.
If you wanted to succeed, you had to grind. And it
Yes.
meant, yes, if you're working, you basically don't sleep. And
Mm.
another thing that really brought me into the burnout that I just not sleep properly. I perceived it as a waste of my time. I didn't realize that actually that's the most important thing you can do for your health.
Right.
Um, so yeah, so when I came to Australia, it was very surprising that, coffee shops closed by 4 p.m. and Big W closed by 6 p.m. And I was in shock. And that markets, like farmers market wasn't, not even farmers market, but like Victoria Market wasn't open every day, but like on
Mm.
Mondays and Wednesdays they closed.
Yes.
So it was a very huge surprise to me. But then I really appreciated that Australians have more of a balance, more of a harmony when it comes to their personal and professional life.
Mm.
But they understand, and this is what I learned here, that unless you take care of yourself personally, you won't be able to grow professionally. I
Yes.
learned it here. Thank you so much. Yeah, so like as we started talking about different parts of the world, culture dictates a lot of things, including how services and products are provided, and
Mm.
including what people allow themselves to do with clients and customers.
Yes.
So, for example, we started chatting about P. Diddy, like
Mhm.
now everyone is talking about him being arrested and what are the charges are, what things he allegedly did. There are a lot of suits against him. It's not just the main criminal suit, but different people sued him as well.
Mm.
And what's interesting is that he threw a lot of very weird parties, and some of those parties were not at his home; they were in hotels.
Mm.
And it's quite interesting to think about it. Okay, how hotel employees dealt with that and how what they thought about it, and why did they hide certain things, or now actually those hotels might get in trouble because if charges because charges are like about sex trafficking, and not just drug distribution but drugging people, in particular some entertainment um, subcontractors, um, and there are allegations of physical abuse and things like that. So because those things were happening in hotels, there is a chance that those hotels also can be sued as well.
Mm.
You know, in particular, this infamous videotape where he was physically abusing his girlfriend, back then girlfriend,
Mm.
Cassandra Ventura. And she, by the way, she sued him, thanks to new legislation. She could do that. She sued him and he settled the suit the very next day. And this video has been circulating where he was so physically abusive to her. And turns out that initially the security guard who had this video, he refused to hide it. But then somehow the video disappeared, and allegedly P. Diddy paid $50,000 to someone for that video to disappear, but now it has resurfaced. So also, someone hid evidence, instead of doing the right thing and going to
Mm.
the police and giving it to the police, they hid it. But also, it's interesting, what's the thinking behind it? Was it just about $50,000, or was
Mm.
it just trying not to damage the reputation of that hotel? Or
Mm.
it's very difficult. You have to make those decisions, whether you work for someone in the hospitality or whether you actually run the business or manage the business. What are you going to do?
Yes.
You
Mm.
know, and it's of course different if it's a big business in comparison to a small business. A
Mm.
small business that's, say, a family business, so the entire income goes towards supporting the family, and also your employees are also counting on you, with their wages
Mm.
and employment. So if you have this difficult client, this difficult customer, what do you do then? You
Yes.
have to make a decision.
Mm.
Which is like, speaking of restaurants, also not a long time ago, it was discussed that James Corden, he's a British comedian, made a scene in the restaurant Balthazar,
Mm.
and he was there with his wife, and she ordered omelet that is made only with egg yolks.
Ah,
It's hard
yes.
for me to imagine. I am a
Mm.
very good cook, and it's hard for me to imagine that. But anyway, yeah, so she ordered egg yolk omelets, but when they brought it to her, there was a little bit of egg white. And according to James Corden, like, so his version of the story that he was just simply rude to the waiter, but the owner of the restaurant said that James Corden was screaming at the waiter.
Mm,
And the owner decided to forbid James Corden to come there ever again.
mm,
So it was quite popular story, widely discussed. I think it just even like it's not that it ended. Um, so the continuation of it was that James Corden did apologize, and the owner said, "Okay, like I'll forgive him." But then James Corden went on saying that he did not do anything wrong, so he's
mm,
kind of, I guess, retracting his apology.
mm.
So the question here is like, what do you do? Like,
Yes.
if you have a customer like that. And in this particular case, it was a famous restaurant. So the owner did not hesitate to do something like that because it
Mm,
wasn't really killing his business. If
yes.
anything, he showed other clients, other customers that such behavior is not going to be tolerated.
Mm,
He showed that he appreciates his staff, his employees, and he's going to protect them.
mm,
And also, oh, I really love that article that you just published, where what to do with a difficult client and
mm.
that there are unreasonable demands and
Yes.
there are reasonable
Mm,
requests.
mm. That's
Um,
right. Because
so
you've got to support your team, Maria. I think that's the most important thing. And even if it is a small business, it's those other diners, if you're looking at a restaurant, if you're accepting that behavior, that they're not going to want to come back at all. Then they're going to tell everyone, oh, don't go there because that's what they accept. But I know it is hard if it is your only business and that's your income. You sort of think, oh, well, maybe if we just tolerate them tonight, they'll just go away. But how often does that mean then that we'll lose customers, future customers, and even our good staff members because they'll just go, well, if you're not going to support me, I'll leave, and that's where it's really disappointing, isn't it?
yeah. It's
Mm,
it's one of the mistakes I made when 10 years ago I was building a business for my mom and
mm,
we were providing cleaning services and maintenance. And at the time, I had this outdated mantra that also you highlighted in your article, the client is always right, the customer is
yeah,
always right.
yeah.
And it's no,
No.
I learned it the hard way 10 years ago. know? And I also learned that like attracts alike. So when you
Yes.
have certain types of clients and
Mm,
customers, you're going to attract more of the same clients and customers.
yes.
Um,
Mm,
so I think it's very important, in particular, to have clarity. Um, I think when it comes to anything in personal life or professional life, you need to have a clarity. What is it you're trying to achieve? So this is
yes.
the very first thing that you need to decide. Where
Mm,
do you want to get to? It
yes.
doesn't mean that you have to have the same goal through your entire life,
Mm,
but you have to have a goal set at any
yes.
particular time.
Mm,
So you need to have clarity in particular about where you're going, what are you trying to achieve, and also clarity, how do you want to get there in terms
yes.
of your values and priorities.
Mm,
So, like you said, staff is very important. So
mm,
one owner might decide that, staff is replaceable. I can
mm,
replace my employees and my clients are more important to me. I'm going to tolerate anything and everything. I'm going to cover for them. And then you can have an owner, business owner who says, no, my employees are more important to me. And I'm
mm,
not going to tolerate certain types of behavior, whether it's towards me or towards them.
mm.
And I'm setting boundaries. There are certain boundaries in particular that I'm working 9 to 5,
Yes.
so don't call me at 2 a.m.
Mm,
So yeah,
yes.
you have to make
Yeah.
a decision. Are you going to be 24/7 business or
Mm,
you're going to be 9 to 5 or whatever hours are, and to be very clear to yourself and to your clients and customers as well
mm. Yeah.
about your values and priorities. So clarity
Definitely.
is clarity is very, very important. It's probably the most important thing. And
Yeah.
when it comes to difficult situations, this is what will help you to make decisions.
Mm. That's because
Yeah.
you've already put those boundaries in place. I know, we've over the years, there's been so many different women and men that I've seen start businesses, and it's all right for me to say. here I'm on my 30th year. Oh, don't work all night. Don't do this. But I know I did that in my early years, probably for the first decade. It was, working so hard, doing, literally doing backflips for customers. And I even had a situation where my youngest was very, very sick, and we nearly lost her. And we're at Westmead Hospital, and she had this very rare bacterial infection, and she'd had a lumbar punch. She was only 2 years of age. She had a line drip up her leg, and I'm sitting in this room, and I'm making calls to clients while I'm watching her, and they said, you're sounding really quiet. And when I explained to them where I was, they said, why are you ringing us? And, but that was the second time it had happened, because I didn't learn from the very first time when I had an emergency cesarean with the same child. The next day, I was ringing clients, and they're saying to me, oh, you sound really weird. Oh, yeah. I said, I had a baby. They said, why are you ringing us? So, it took me a while. 2 years later, I did the same thing. It took me a while to understand what was in my mind that I thought the expectations were of my clients of me, instead of being open and communicating with them and setting those boundaries. This is what's happening. You'll know their work will get done, and that's all that's a priority. But instead of thinking, oh, I won't have the clients if I don't do all this work. But it's hard when you first start out, because you think, oh, you need to do everything. But you're so right. It's that clarity, but those clarity of boundaries, setting them, sticking to them, and then communicating. Because I think that's the thing. We can have them, but we don't communicate them as well. And this is where it really plays into our mental health, doesn't it? And we're working, we've now got that disconnect, not ringing at nighttime. But in the hospitality industry, there are times that yes, they are going to be, and they've got to understand that. But it's also understanding that people in hospitality or any industry are not going to work the same as what they did in the past. And perhaps some employers may see that as a narcissism. Oh, well, it's all just about you. But I like to reframe it. And please correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm certainly not a researcher like you, Mariya. I say to my clients, reframe it that they've got a purpose for their life. It's not just about work, which we've seen in past generations. And I just don't want to stereotype every person that's in a generation, but we have to see that people are wanting to be able to spend more time, or if they can do work in 4 hours instead of 8, why don't we accept that, instead of going, oh, oh, it's only about themselves. No, that maybe they've just got their priorities and purpose in life well more rounded in their mind than perhaps what others have done in the past, or others in the workplace. So it's a real hard thing to get past. So how does that narcissism play on mental health? If somebody says in the workplace like that, Mariya, look, I can do this in a few shorter hours, and can I then do that and then go home? And they go, well, I'm only going to pay you for 3 hours because you haven't done 8. And then, people say, oh, they're just lazy, as you were saying before. Is it narcissism? What is it when somebody goes, no, this is how I want to see my life. My life doesn't have to be bound by work. Do you
Oh
think
no,
people see that?
it's being a person who understands that without personal well-being, you cannot be at your best professionally.
Mm,
So that's not narcissism. It's
no.
we're
Oh,
all very different, and
yes.
someone, like about 2% of the population can get away on 4 hours of sleep,
Mm,
but most people need 8 to 10 hours.
mm,
And Albert Einstein needed 12 hours, for
yeah.
example. So
Yeah.
just in relation to that, we're all very different. So when they say, "Oh, we have the same amount of time," that's not really correct to say it that
Mm,
way.
yes.
Um, so we recharge differently. We have different obligations. It's a different story for someone who has two, three, 5 children
Yes.
in comparison to someone who is single and well responsible for themselves.
Mm,
It depends. Are you running just one business, or are you juggling 5 businesses, for
mm,
example? So it's all very individual, and you need to know, and you know yourself better than anyone else.
Mm.
So you know better than anyone what is it you need to take care of
Yes.
personally in order to perform at best
Mm.
professionally. So it's not a narcissism, it's just common sense.
Yes, yeah. But do you
That's yeah.
do you think though they, perhaps people wouldn't use the word narcissism in the workplace. Maybe they go, "Oh, you're being selfish," or "You're just thinking of yourself," or "It's all just about you," or they may be making those comments to the others, and that puts people in a really bad headspace in the work environment, doesn't it? And therefore, they may be a good employee, but they leave because they're not being heard. Mm,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's also quite interesting that it's not about how many hours someone works, it's about how focused and productive they are
Yes.
within
Yeah.
those hours that they work.
Mm,
So it's also like an outdated this misconception that I grew up with that, you just have to stay at work as late as you can,
mm,
and you just have to be busy, 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 and
mm,
sleep is just a waste of time.
mm.
And if you stay longer at work,
Yes.
your boss will notice it and, give you a
Mm,
promotion, or not going to fire you when it's time to,
mm.
reduce the amount of employees and go through firing people.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if someone is criticized, if you're being reasonable and someone is criticizing you for it, it just means it's not the right culture. It's
Yes.
not the right place. It's time to move on and to find people who appreciate you, and
Mm.
to find that right circle. I understand I make it sound easy. Well, it's not. But one of the things I learned through my life is that if you're in the wrong place, move on. You will always find another
Yes.
job.
Yeah.
Um, you will if even if a friend is mistreating you, you'll make another friend.
Mm,
If you're staying in a friendship where you're getting abused and disrespected, you're being disloyal to yourself.
mm.
It's not
Yes.
about your loyalty to that person. It's you just being disloyal to yourself.
Mm.
You don't have to be with them. It's wonderful when there are friendships that last a lifetime.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
it's amazing when relationships like that happen. But you have to realize that if you're not losing friends, you're not growing. So one of the other things that I learned in Australia as well.
Mm.
Thank you. Because I just kept forgiving a lot of people for mistreating me and just kept thinking like, oh no, I can't break up this friendship because I'm going to be disloyal and friends supposed to be friends forever. So it's another
Mm.
misconception that I had. And yeah, I finally learned that no, if you're not being appreciated, if you're not being treated right, if you're doing so much for the person and they don't even say thank you or
Mm.
think, that you owe them, that it's owed to them. So it's another narcissistic behavior where
Mm.
the person thinks that, the universe owes them, you owe them, everyone owes them. They're supposed to get just everything just like that.
Yeah.
Then yeah, it's just not a right person. It's a wrong person who's being bad for your mental and physical health as well. And you just need to move on. And the
Yes.
same with workplace as well. I don't know, it's very difficult to find job in a lot of circumstances. And, but the sooner you start looking, the sooner you'll find that right thing for
Yes.
you.
Yeah. And it is finding the right place. I was actually on a panel yesterday about the multi-generational workplace with the University of Tasmania and Institute of Managers and Leaders. And we started talking about, diversity of gender and culture, but also and then we started talking about ageism. But ageism in that multi-generational workplace where a lot of people as they get older, they're fearful of leaving a job because they're wondering, will I get another job? And you feel when you're young you've got that little bit more robust, you've got some time, but unfortunately I think there's probably a number of people out there in the workplace that are just putting up with really diabolical situation because they're fearful that nobody will want them because they're too old, and that's what the story they're telling to themselves, or perhaps even the naysayers around them. It's what you were saying, Mariya. It's finding the right people around you that will support you and go, you know what, you've got so much skill set. Don't worry about your age. Just, apply. And I think that was, that's what I went away with. Yes, I was saying to him, just apply for whatever the role is, and then, tell the story when you go to see them, and don't worry about your age or your culture or whatever it might be that you believe's holding you back, because once again, it's that concern perhaps from somebody like a narcissistic boss or a workplace where people haven't seen you for what your true worth is. Do you feel that sometimes?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So in
Mm,
particular, among behaviors, narcissistic behaviors,
mm,
there's such a thing as strangulating. It means that you being compared to something or someone, and either that something someone is praised and you are feeling very bad, they make you feel very bad that you're
mm.
not worthy, or it could be actually the other way around as well, that they might say, oh, you're wonderful, but that other person or something is just completely awful. So it's called
Right.
triangulating. And one of the examples that I write in my book about is actually Jada Pinkett Smith, Tupac, and Will Smith. That unfortunately Tupac was killed, and still after so many years, Jada Pinkett Smith still brings up Tupac and makes her still husband Will Smith feel um, like he's not worthy, he's not good enough.
Right. Mm,
So like this is an example of triangulating. But like I said, it
mm.
could be the other way, the other way as well, which is also not a good sign either. So triangulating with something or someone makes you feel unworthy, makes you feel like you don't deserve even what you already have and the
Mm.
job that you have. And of course you feel, you know, like you won't be able to find something else.
Yes.
So you
Yeah.
have to stay on
Mm,
that job.
mm.
Another narcissistic behavior is gaslighting, when someone is practically lying to you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? Because that's I don't know, when I was growing up with boyfriends and things, you had a telephone or you'd be seeing them at the railway station or whatever it might be. So they couldn't really sort of disappear on you. But this gaslighting business, and I suppose I'm showing my age here. I hear so much about it, but I really I can't. They just sound like they're not answering the telephone or they're not doing things, and people get so concerned about it. So I mean, yeah, my listeners probably know more about it than I do. They're probably thinking I'm a bit silly, but how is that seen, and what's the impact on people's mental and physical health? And is that gaslighting? Are you saying that's part of that narcissistic behavior?
Absolutely. It's one of the most common things that narcissists commit is gaslighting. So they're basically lying into your face.
Right.
For example, so I'm trying to think of examples from the hospitality industry, but
Yeah.
what I'm thinking, what I'm thinking now is about Kylie Jenner
Yeah.
when she released her lipstick, lip gloss or lip kit or something like
Hmm.
that. She was telling everyone that her lips look so plump because of her makeup, because of the
Oh,
lipstick kit that she was selling.
right.
But, and of course, everyone's like, no, you had a lip filler. And she's like, no, it's because of my lip kit. So for a very long time, she kept gaslighting her fans and her customers with that lip kit. And of course, she sold a lot of those lip kits. And of course, no one got results
Oh,
they were
right.
expecting, because she admitted finally that, yes, she got lip filler. And this is why her lips look like that. It has nothing to do with her lip kit.
Mm,
And also another gaslighting was, there was so many articles about her being the youngest billionaire and how successful her business was. But when investigative journalists started looking into her books and, you know, looking closely at the numbers, they realized it was also a lie. So it
mm,
was also another way she was gaslighting her
mm.
fans and journalists and public, that she wasn't as successful, far from as successful as she was trying to be, to
Mm.
portray being, because people had doubts, but no, like, that's what was put forward. So it's like, so just two examples of gaslighting just with her.
Yes, yeah. It's just, yeah, I just you just be honest. It's going to
Mm,
catch you out. I think,
yeah.
it's been all they said, if you don't tell the truth, it'll eventually you'll be caught out. So you've got to be honest. However, as you even said right back at the start, everybody at some point in the time has had some sort of narcissistic trait, and we've all told a little white lie, if not more, at
Mm.
times. But it's yeah, when it's something serious like that, and it can impact on others, it's really disappointing. Building courage and confidence is two of the things you were saying right at the very start, Mariya. One of the three essential aspects of thriving in the 2020s you mentioned is developing that courage and that self-confidence. How does cultivating these traits help in dealing with narcissistic individuals?
Um, when I was trying to find out how to make yourself happy, I realized that this is what everyone was striving for
Mm,
happiness. But I learned that actually happiness is a byproduct. So what you really need to work on is your resilience.
mm,
If you make yourself more resilient, and it is something you need to keep working on, happiness just becomes naturally with it. And it also improves both your physical health and your mental health.
mm,
So when you particularly work on your skill of courage or skill of self-confidence, and it is a skill, which is great news, it means that everyone can develop it further,
mm,
no matter how unconfident, how, no matter how much confidence you have or how much you lack of it, you can work on it and you can develop it, and it's
mm,
actually quite easy to do with a few exercises. So when you are self-confident, it means that you believe in yourself. It means that you believe that if something happens, you will figure it out. Or if you want to embark on a particular project, you will figure it out.
mm,
You'll find right people, you'll learn things, you'll discover how to get things done, you'll upskill yourself. So self-confidence is not arrogance. It's because
mm.
arrogance is when a person thinks I'm better than anyone else.
Yes, yes. Mm,
So in particular, narcissists, they think that they have to be, no, what's interesting with some narcissists, actually, they are very vulnerable and don't believe in themselves, but they think that all other people are supposed to see them as the best.
mm,
So it's quite interesting that there are different types of narcissists as well, different categories. But the point is that arrogance is when you walk into a room and you think, I'm better than everyone else. I
mm,
know everything. The universe owes me. I have to be praised. I'm most talented, I'm most skilled, I'm the best looking. So that's arrogance. But
mm,
self-confidence is about believing in yourself that, no, I don't know everything. No, I'm not the best in the world. But if I have an idea, I'll find out how to make it true.
yes.
If I find myself in a difficult situation in particular, I will figure it out,
Mm,
then and there. And if I don't, it's going to be a learning lesson for me. So
yes.
if something doesn't go my way, it's not the end of the world. It just means that I'm having a learning experience. I don't have to win every single time.
Yes.
So when you build your skill of courage, you do become more resilient. And when you become more resilient, when you have to deal with difficult people, you are less reactive. Because in
Mm,
particular with narcissists, like they really feed on reaction,
right.
whether it's negative or positive. And
Mm,
in particular, surely it's a narcissist who said that there's no such thing as a bad publicity.
mm.
So narcissists, they're feeding on people's reactions and emotions, and
Mm,
once again, whether it's positive or negative. But if
yes.
you don't show your emotions, if you stay calm,
Mm,
if you're not being reactive with them, this is actually the best way to deal with a narcissist. Just to
mm,
calmly listen to them, calmly talk to them, not to express any negativity, not to express any, oh, I'm such a fan of yours, blah, blah, blah. You can do
yes.
anything and blah, blah, blah.
Mm,
No, like just staying calm, keeping yourself together, communicating with them in a calm manner. This is the best way to, well, no, the best way is to walk away. So whenever it's possible, in particular in personal life, the best
mm,
solution is just to cut them off completely. like
Yes.
that restaurant owner who said, James Corden is not welcome anymore. But it's not something you can do
Mm.
often enough, more often than not, you actually have to deal with a person.
Yes.
So the second best thing is just to keep your cool, keep your calm, and not to be reactive, but
Mm.
more proactive rather than reactive in
Yeah.
that
So that which
situation.
is which is oh, when I say okay, it's something that you could do in friendships because you can choose who your friends are and you just, yeah, you'd cut that friendship or you just wouldn't see them as much. In the workplace, you may be able to, change, departments or change roles or change, organizations altogether. But what happens when it's perhaps your partner or a family member and they are a narcissist? How do you handle that? Have you got any? I'm sure you talk about it in your book, but is there any sort of and it's certainly not a one solution fits all, I'm sure, Mariya. But have you got any thoughts about that? If it is your partner or a family member, maybe a parent or a sibling or
Yeah,
even a child?
of course, it's such a tricky situation. In
Mm,
particular, like once again, if you're married to someone, but you don't have kids and you don't have assets to share, you can walk away. You can block them on social media. You can change your phone number. And this is the main advice. I will quote probably the best expert on narcissism. His name is H.G. Tudor. He has a channel on YouTube calling Knowing the Narcissist, and
mm,
he talks about a lot of things. Like he puts so many videos out. It's just incredible source of information. He also published books, and you can even get like a personal consultation with him. He himself is a narcissist psychopath.
mm. Right, okay.
and, and he's dishing out so much. And I followed a lot of experts on narcissism. I read a lot of books and I just keep coming back to him because trust me, he's the best. So he says, once you know, you go. So once you know that you're dealing with a narcissist, you just have to completely cut ties with them
Mm,
if you can do that.
yeah,
So that's the best advice to give. But what's interesting is that it's difficult to actually recognize a narcissist,
right.
in
Mm,
particular because narcissists are usually very good at putting facades,
mm,
creating an image. Um, they're very good at manipulation. They're
mm,
very good at influencing you. And also often, in particular when it comes to partners and parents and children, they put you on a roller coaster where they
mm,
kind of love bomb you and you feel on the top of the world. And then they completely turn around and just, make you feel like you're the worst person in the world. And they
mm,
put you on that roller coaster. And once you get on that roller coaster, you become more addicted to that person.
right.
So for some, like it's interesting that we get addicted to things and people that don't always give us positive experience, but give us positive and negative experience or
Mm,
positive experience and no experience. Like this is why we're so addicted to checking our emails. We're
mm,
so addicted to social media in particular, because this is that roller coaster of, good things and no things or negative things.
mm,
And with narcissists, they put you on that roller coaster of, oh, you're the most incredible person in the world. And then you just become a scapegoat, like, like everything is your fault and you're
mm,
the worst and blah, blah, blah. And you just keep riding that roller coaster. And the longer you ride it, the more addictive you become, like addicted
right.
to actual person, to being with a person.
Yes.
And narcissists are so, so good at manipulating and hiding things and putting a front that like I can hear more and more experts sharing that usually takes on average 18 months to 2 years for a partner to figure out that their husband or wife is a
Right.
narcissist. You
Right.
are with that person like
Mm,
most of the time basically, and still it takes such a long time to figure out that you're being abused,
yes.
that this is not
Mm,
an appropriate behavior, that you're
mm,
dealing with a narcissist. And even if it comes to actual psychologists and psychiatrists, also it takes several sessions of one-on-one with a person to figure
mm,
out whether the narcissist or not. So it could
Yes.
take like 8 sessions, 8 hours, 8 meetings to
Mm,
actually finally identify whether the person is narcissist or
mm.
just, narcissistic or normal or empath. So it's tricky to figure out in the first place.
Yes.
And then once you do figure out how do you deal with that, and like I said, trust me, check out HG Tutor in particular on YouTube. He has so many videos and he talks about a lot of celebrities, like in particular, I think Meghan Markle is his go-to
Right.
person to analyze. And he does such a great analysis
Mm,
of her and her relationships and like what is she
mm.
doing. So you can really learn a lot through just his analysis of just her. But
Perfect. All
he
right.
explains a lot of things, and it's not just him. Like every expert says that if you know you with a narcissist, where it's friendship or relationship, or you're employed by a narcissist, if you can, just cut them out of your life
Yes.
completely,
Yes.
completely. Never.
Mm,
The best thing you can do is to make yourself happy without them. This is the
mm.
best revenge.
Yes.
So
Yes.
don't do anything to them, but just cut
Mm,
them off and focus on your well-being, focus on your growth, focus on your happiness,
mm.
focus on your success. And this is the best revenge that you can achieve, achieve
Yeah.
towards them. Otherwise, if you don't cut them off, they will keep coming back. This is like one of those things that's going to keep happening, that they just cannot pop in back and forth.
Right.
And it's
Yeah.
going to be for the rest of your life, driving you
Mm,
crazy. And you're going to be once again on that roller coaster with
mm.
them.
And that's that thing. It's continuing on that roller coaster and never getting off it. And even
Mm,
though it may be hard, it is just breaking those ties.
mm.
We could talk for so much longer.
Yeah. Oh, can I bring another example? Like,
Yeah, no,
so
I was
when you
about to say I was going to ask you another question, but by all means, go for
it just popped in my mind. I have so many different examples in my book.
it.
This is why it's taking me so long, because I triple check. No, I check everything 10 times to make sure that I'm saying everything
Yes.
accurately, and yeah, that I'm being spot on examples. And I have so many examples.
Mm,
So with a narcissist, if you're stuck with them, whether it's your partner or your client, in particular client or customer, um, if you're prepared to have them as your client and customer in particular, you have to learn how to talk to them. So basically, how to influence them.
mm,
And this is where what you mentioned, that everyone has their goals.
mm.
So if you know what their goals are, then you can persuade them to behave in a particular way in order to achieve those goals.
Yes.
And it was just yesterday, I was writing about Jack Sparrow,
Oh,
from
yeah.
the Pirates of the Caribbean. And in one of the movies, there was this scene where um, Elizabeth, the main character, female character, played by Keira Knightley, I think her name is Elizabeth, and she was trying to persuade him, and she said to him, at some point, a moment comes where you'll have this opportunity to do the right thing, and
Mm,
you'll do the right thing because you're a good person. And Jack Sparrow says, you know what? Everything says to the contrary. I'm not a good person. So this is where she changes the tactic. So she,
mm,
instead of appealing to his empathy, because he doesn't have empathy, so it was like time wasted, energy wasted, she said to him, but you will be curious how it's going to feel to be praised, for doing something heroic.
mm.
And you're just going to be so curious, how it tastes and how it feels. And so you're going to do it. And this is where she got him. And
Right.
at the end of the movie, when he had a chance to, I think, save her husband or whatever, he did it instead of doing something to his benefit. He thought that it benefit him more to do something heroic,
Mm.
because she manipulated him very, very softly and, very
Yes.
smoothly into kind of changing his goals and changing his perception of how he, not even changing his goals, but kind of perception of how he can achieve those goals.
Mm.
So if you say to a narcissist, so if it's like narcissistic or normal or empathic person, you can tell them, look, this behavior is unreasonable. Please don't do it.
Yes.
Let's find a way to fix it, but you're not behaving well, blah, blah, blah. It will work on them, but not on a
Mm.
narcissist. Unless you explain to a narcissist that, if you behave properly, I will praise you on social media.
Mm.
I will say what a great person you are, or maybe for someone, it could be not about how good of a person they are, but how good they look. So I'm gonna say,
Right.
oh, you look incredible, like you're the most
Yes.
beautiful person in the world. So yeah, so like for instance with Jennifer Lopez, from what I'm seeing, um there's also a lot of stories about her, how she treats poorly people,
Mm.
and it's clear that she's not striving to be perceived as a good person.
Right.
Also, she's a very, by the way, I'm actually a fan of her as an actress, just to put it out there, but I'm not a hater. I very much love her as an actress, and particularly the
Mm.
last movies, she was incredible. So if you look at The Hustlers, Gunshot Wedding, Atlas, um, what was a Mother. So she played very, very different characters. She
Yes.
didn't play the same character in all movies, but she
Mm.
played a very different character every single time.
Yes.
And by the
Mm.
way, it's something that narcissists are very good at,
Right. Okay.
actually
Yes.
taking on
Yeah.
a different personas.
Mm.
So I really like her as an actress. And I also don't understand why she's getting criticized about her vocals, because I went to her concert about a decade ago, and live she was just incredible.
Right.
Like
Mm.
it's nothing like, when you listen to a recording, her voice is maybe like 5 times dimmer.
Right.
When she was
Okay.
singing live, oh my
Yes. It's
God, my
better.
my
Wow.
mind was blown away.
Mm.
So yeah, I don't quite understand either why she's criticized for her vocals. I mean,
Mm.
I saw some videos where she can sing properly, but with singers, it's their instrument, and
Yes.
sometimes you kind of maybe lose your voice, or
Mm.
there's something wrong. You can't hit the notes that you usually can. So things like that happen. So we should be
Yes.
understanding about that. Um, yeah, but as a person, like the more I was learning about her behavior and looking through stories that were shared, I was getting more and more sad, because in
Mm.
particular, there are those stories where Ben Affleck would give a tip, like $100 tip to a waiter, and she would replace it with a $5 or $10 bill. So she would actually
Mm.
take the tip away and replace it with a $5 or $10 tip. And then there are stories where she got some people fired. Like, for example, she doesn't want any drivers to look at her, including when they're driving, they're not permitted to look into the rear view mirror.
Mm.
She thinks that they're looking at her, and she got someone fired for that. Also, there was some allegedly a cleaner in a hotel who knocked on the door wanting to ask her an autograph, and she got refused, and she allegedly got fired for that, at least according to her story. But there are also things with her, like she's always expecting everything to be white in her room, and she's expecting her luggage to never ever touch the ground. But that could be, maybe she's a germaphobe, I don't know.
Mm.
So it kind
Mm.
of looks more as less of a narcissism, but more of a disorder,
Yes.
probably.
Mm. Mm.
So it's also important to see, to understand why people do things, the way
Yes.
they do them.
Mm.
So for her, what's important is not to be recognized as a good person, but to be recognized as a talented, beautiful person.
Right.
So I assume the main reason why she doesn't want people to look at her is because she wants to be in control, when paparazzi see her,
Oh,
when people look
gosh.
at her. Because,
Mm.
of course, I mean, she looks stunning, seriously,
Mm.
in her 50s. Um, Dancing on a strip pole. Oh my God, I have no idea where she's got the strength and
Mm.
like being so athletic. She works very, very hard. Like, credit is due where credit is due.
Mm.
So as an entertainer, I have utmost respect for her. But it seems to me that she just prefers for people not to look at her
Mm.
unless she wants them to look at her when she's prepared, full on makeup and hair is
Yes.
done,
Yeah.
hair extensions are in.
Mm.
um, cleavage out. I don't
Yeah.
know.
And that's the whole thing. It's the one being in control, not allowing others to control you, or yeah, it's just changing the whole meaning of where she sees herself within society, doesn't it?
Yeah, and most importantly, how she wants to be perceived. So if
Yes,
you
yeah.
know what a narcissist is striving
Mm,
for, then you can accommodate them and you can kind of influence, manipulate them into
mm,
behaving better. But you
yes.
need to have clarity. And once again, something that you very wisely pointed out in the beginning of our conversation, that you need to know what person's goals are.
Mm,
So if you
yes.
figure out, in particular with narcissists, like what are
Mm,
they striving for?
mm,
Because once again, narcissists fall in different categories and they strive for different things. For someone, it's be famous and doesn't matter if they broke, they just love being famous. That's their main
yes.
goal. For
Yes.
another person, it could be lots and lots and lots of money,
Mm,
and they get a yacht for $500 million, and then
mm.
try to dismantle a historic bridge to get it through. But for someone else, it could be just wanting to be perceived as the most talented and most
Yes.
beautiful.
Mm,
So when you take Taylor Swift, it's very different, like what her goals are in comparison to Jennifer Lopez. So
yes.
Taylor
Mm,
Swift wants to be perceived like as a good, I want to say Catholic girl. I think she's Catholic, but as a good religious girl.
yes. Yes.
She
Mm,
she wants to be perceived like that, and
mm,
she's also very. I'm not a fan of hers, but she works extremely hard. So
yes.
also
Yes.
respect is due where respect is due. Um, but her goals are very different to Jennifer Lopez's goals. So
Mm.
she, on the other hand, wants to be seen, praised and for people to look at her. So she thrives on that.
Yes, yes, but for a whole totally different reason. It's for, yeah, being mindful of the community, helping people. I know I was in Nashville last year on a food tour, which was phenomenal. And Taylor Swift is from that area, and she'd been there the weekend beforehand, and she'd stood in the line signing autographs for nearly 9 hours. And of course, she quickly, I'm sure, went and had a bathroom break. But she waited till the absolute last person had had the little, the autograph book out, no matter how old or young they were. And you could see that she knew that without that fan base, she wouldn't be where she was today. And I thought, how wonderful to do that. Because most people would just say, even after perhaps an hour or two, well, that's enough. Whereas you were saying with other stars, perhaps it's all about just look at me. It's just about me. Whereas with Taylor Swift, it appears, and I'm sure for many others, it's not just about them. It's about them, but where are they in that place with that purpose and with the people around them? So, yeah,
Taylor
it's
Swift is
very
incredibly
interesting.
intelligent. She's
Yes.
very intelligent and she's a
Mm.
fantastic entrepreneur.
Yes.
And that's why, like, one of the reasons you will never see a story where she mistreated a fan or
No,
where she
no.
mistreated an employee, like, you know. So she understands that where she wants to get to and
Mm.
stay where she is, she needs to treat her fans accordingly and she
Mm.
needs to treat her service staff accordingly as well.
Yes.
Like
Yes. Yeah.
in particular, fun example, a funny story, the way she gets to her concerts to avoid crowds
Mm.
and to get onto stage, they actually hide her like in a catering
Ah,
cupboard.
yes. Yes.
So,
Yeah.
so she hides there and the staff rolls her in.
Mm.
And she understands that, she needs proper lighting, she needs proper sound,
Mm.
she needs proper backup dancers, to support her stardom.
Yes. Yes.
She understands the value of those people. So
Mm.
she doesn't behave well, she doesn't behave kindly out of kindness,
Yes. Mm.
but out of wisdom and
Yes. Yes.
intelligence.
Very true. So, Mariya, tell us about this book before we finish up this wonderful podcast, because I've really enjoyed listening to you, and I know we're certainly going to have you back on once you've got the book out there. But yeah, just tell us a little bit about that, and then of course we'll be putting links in the show notes so people can purchase that. So yeah, tell us just briefly, and when should it be out? We're gonna Audience, we're going to be holding Mariya, so her feet are to the fire because I've known about this book for a long time. So,
Yeah. Oh, I'm striving to release it before Christmas, but there's still some editing to do, and I'm checking every reference for the 10th time because, in
Yes,
particular, I bring a lot of examples about famous people, well-known people,
yes,
and I don't want to say something that is not true.
yes,
Um, so yeah, for the 10th time, I'm rechecking examples and stories. And yeah, so there's a bit more work to do, mostly editing,
yes.
which is harder than writing and doing research.
And do you have a name for the book as yet?
Maybe the audience could help me because the working title is How to Human in the 2020s.
Mm.
But it is about how to be happy, healthy, and fulfilled in the 2020s. But it's not like the sexiest title. So maybe the audience could help me with that.
Well, I will put that out there, but I like that second one. How to be happy, healthy, and what was the other one? Uh,
Successful or fulfilled.
yeah, happy, healthy, and successful in
Mm.
the 2020s. I think that's just a great title. I'd be going with that. It's exactly what people are looking for and wanting. Mariya, thank you so much for this time that we've spent together. The conversation has been wonderful. And I know, there are a lot, you've given away so many little and shared so many little gems of wisdom and knowledge and insights that my audience will love, and I'm sure will listen multiple times to just take that in and think, how is that narcissistic behavior impacting me? They may be thinking in the workplace or in the home life, or perhaps are they the one who is showing these narcissistic traits, and what do they need to do? But also just sharing your story at the start there about, at times we need to get out of our own way and believe in ourselves, and looking at those three areas. So you talked about courage, you talked about relationships, but what was that first really key one?
Sleep.
Sleep.
Get,
Yeah. And
getting
that's why I
proper
want you to
sleep and
cover it,
rest.
because so many people go, oh, it's courage, it's relationships, but it starts with sleep. So
It
that's
does.
wonderful.
I
Thank you.
learned it the very hard way, and then I confirmed it through research that
Yes.
the most important thing you can do, both for your personal well-being and professional growth as well,
Mm,
is to get proper sleep.
yes.
Because if you don't get proper rest, if you don't get proper recovery, you're not going to be as focused and productive.
No,
And without focus and productivity, it's going to take you so much longer to get to where you want to get.
it
So,
certainly is.
yeah. So please make sure to start with sleep, but also make a note of your relationships, I guess. I don't know what the other word would be for it, but make a note it. See
Yes.
who are the people in your life that
Yes.
actually add to your happiness, or at least don't take away from your happiness,
Mm,
because it is your responsibility to make you happy, yourself happy.
yes. Yes.
Um, but other people can either take away from it or add to it. So make sure you surround yourself with people who add to your happiness.
Yeah, I think just finishing, I remember reading something, people saying, oh, when you have a partner in life, oh, they are you, they actually complete you. They're not, they don't, yeah, it was muffed up totally what the quote was, but it was that whole thing, when you meet somebody, you become whole, you become one, and they're completing you. So it's finding that person.
I disagree with that.
Yeah, good.
I disagree with it
Okay,
because
perfect. Go for it.
you're supposed to be a complete person
Oh, that's
yourself.
what it was. Yes, I mucked it up. I don't, when I was saying, I'm thinking that doesn't sound right. So it was the fact that people go, oh, when you find somebody, they will complete you. And then that's what this person, whoever it was, came back and said, no, wait on, you're already completed. So yes, let's
Yeah.
finish on that since I
They
mucked that up.
they're supposed to complement you.
Compliment. That's it. Yes, not
So
complete compliment.
the way I describe it is compare lemon tart and lemon meringue. What's the
Right.
difference?
Oh, yes. Very nice. I
Yeah.
like the meringue part.
I
Mm.
like lemon meringue as well more, but lemon tart, because lemon meringue is basically lemon tart with a meringue on top of it,
Yes,
right?
yes.
But lemon tart on its own is fantastic.
Yeah,
It's a
it
great
is.
dessert.
Mm,
So the way I see finding a life partner could be absolutely incredible if it's the right person, if they're
mm,
compatible, if they putting effort to actually build a relationship with you. So it's like adding that meringue to lemon tart and creating,
mm.
something on a different level. But if you don't find the right person, it's absolutely fine to be single And to be
Yes.
like the most amazing lemon tart. I think of another cake. I don't know. Think of any cake that doesn't have like sprinkles and sour and whipped cream and cherries on top. Think of any cake that you love. Like you're supposed to bake that cake of
Yes.
happiness for yourself, whatever cake you like.
Mm,
But then if you do find the right person, if you do have right friends, and if you find that right partner, it is like adding those, whipped cream and cherries and
yes.
whatever else on top of it. So it's not necessary, but if it happens, it could be incredible.
It is.
Um, but yes, it's about that person complimenting you and you complimenting them
Mm.
in terms of happiness. So it's their responsibility to make themselves happy. It's your responsibility to make yourself happy. And then you meet together, you're supposed to add to each other's happiness, or at least not take away from your happiness.
Well, and I think that is a wonderful note to finish on. Thank you so much, Mariya. It's been wonderful having this conversation with you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for joining me on this week's podcast. I do hope there was some moments of aha, insights, tips, and some action steps for you to take in your business or organization. I love being in this industry. So the more that you can get the word out about this podcast, because it really is an honor and a privilege to have so many amazing guests on the podcast, that we need to get the word out there. So please share. A review would be wonderful. And if you'd like to reach out and learn more about what I do and my signature program for the leadership development middle management movement, please have a look at the website, www.michellepasco.com. Take care, everyone. Bye.